Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. Our purpose and passion are simple: to highlight the incredible nonprofits that make our communities stronger. Each episode is a chance for these organizations to tell their story in their words, sharing not just what they do, but why it matters to the people they serve, to their supporters, and to all of us who believe in the power of community. Through podcasting, we hope to amplify their voices, inspire connection, and give them one more tool to impact the hearts of donors, partners, and neighbors alike. This work is made possible through the generous support of our incredible partners: Cap Trust, offering fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations; Western Health Advantage, a local not-for-profit health plan that believes health care is more than coverage. It's about caring. CORE, Executive Leadership and Comprehensive Support Services. They work in it so you can work on it. And Five Star Bank, a local, trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. This episode, I'm joined by Dr. Dawnté Early, CEO of United Way California Capital Region. United Way is one of our region's true legacy nonprofits, founded in 1923. And in this conversation, you'll hear how they've evolved from being a trusted community hub for giving to stepping directly into the gap with programs that move families toward stability. We talk about the ladder out of poverty, education, from Dolly Parton's Imagination Library and kindergarten readiness programs to literacy tutoring, and one of the most powerful initiatives I've heard, guaranteed income support for former foster youth in college, helping them stay on track to graduate. You'll also learn about United Way's free tax prep program, bringing tens of millions of dollars back into local pockets, and why collaboration and policy change may be the only way to truly slow the flow of poverty long term. This is a big picture conversation with real, practical impact, and I know you'll walk away afterward feeling both informed and energized. Dr. Dawnté Early, welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so happy to have you here because this has been like a year-long process to get you in for no good reason either, really.
Yeah, I think you have a busy schedule, right? I run a nonprofit, so obviously, and a city, and so I'm also a little busy, and so I'm so excited to be here.
I can't wait to talk about some of those things.
Yeah.
United Way is one of our legacy nonprofits, over 100 years of service. I'm sure over that period of time, much has changed from what it originated as to what it is today. Can you give us an idea of what that looks like in the way that United Way provides service today in the greater Sacramento region?
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, United Way was founded in 1923.
Amazing.
And so I know it is over 103 years old. I mean, we were founded as a community trust, right? Back in the day, back in our grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather's day, you would give to United Way and trust that they would give to what was needed in the community. And that's evolved over time. That still is a core aspect of what your local United Way, what we do. But in addition to that, what we saw coming out of COVID was there were a lot more needs within the community around supporting kids in their education, around economic mobility, and some of these other things in regards to the issues that United Way, our mission, which is to end poverty in the capital region. And so we saw that we needed to step even more into the gap and not only continue to be a collective impact and backbone organization, but also step right there with other nonprofits, hand in hand, arm in arm, in order to provide the services that our community desperately needs.
And that's going to be a big part of the conversation too, because it's the buzzword today is collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what does that look like? How are you integrating? How are you supporting each other? That's what you've been doing all along.
That is our mission, right? United is the way. And what that really means, you have the United Helping Hand. It's that if we all do our part, that together we can do so much more collaboratively. And so it is what United Way has always done. It's what we continue to do to find partnerships, to find opportunities, and to ask the question, how can we help?
Mm-hmm. California Capital Region, what does that entail? How big is the scope of service that you're responsible for?
So our United Way Capital Region serves 5 counties: Yolo, Placer, Amador, El Dorado, and Sacramento. That is our core region.
Mm-hmm.
We also, however, have expanded in regards to our service area. Um, Last year, actually, I guess now 2 years ago, we expanded to housing services. We have a program called Keep Solano Housed in Solano County, and that was based on all the housing work that we had started to do. Solano County saw that and said, hey, would you be interested in applying for an RFP here and providing some of those services? And sure enough, we were. We also, actually, November of last year, expanded our free tax prep work to Sutter, Yuba, Calusa. And so what we are seeing, and this is, again, the question that we say, how can we help, is that some of the core services that we provide, direct services, that our surrounding counties need some of that. And so we have stepped up in order to, again, arm in arm with our other United Ways, provide those services.
And I'm sure in the essence of doing that properly, it's collaborative. There's other
It's
pieces that
all
come into.
collaborative. Yes, absolutely. It really is, what do you do well? What do we do well? And then how do we come together, scale that up? And really, with at the center of that, how do we help families and how do we end poverty in this region?
Mm-hmm. Ending poverty through education is a
Yeah.
big part of what you do. And I'm a firm believer as well that it is the quickest path to breaking that generational cycle of poverty, getting somebody aware and educated. And you start at a very early age. Tell us a little bit about the education programs that you offer.
Yeah, so education is the ladder out of poverty. It's one of our major tenets. And we have a whole suite of educational programs, starting with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library
Mm-hmm.
program, in which every kiddo, 0 to 5, no matter their family's income, gets a book every single month. You can sign up. You get a book from Dolly herself, and it's age appropriate. They're high quality books. And California actually is the only state in the country that offers both English and Spanish books. And so we have been doing this program for 10 years in Yolo County. This past year in 2025, we actually expanded that program to Sac County, and we expanded and started in July. And we already have, I think, something like 6,000 families signed up in Sacramento County alone.
And that's families. You could have multiple children
Absolutely.
in a family.
Yep.
That's amazing. Assuming it's just 2, that's 12,000 kids you're impacting over the course of that program.
Yeah. And you're helping families start their home library, right? You are encouraging a love and learning for reading. And then what I also love, because my degree is in child development and human development,
Yeah.
you are also helping that parental bond, right? That's a moment for parents to be able to take with their kiddo and read that book to them every night.
As you graduate from 5 years old,
Mm-hmm.
you also have additional programs. And if I'm not mistaken, you just are completing a grant. That was a 3-year grant.
Yes.
Tell us about that, because that touched a lot of children.
Absolutely. So when we turned 100, we wanted to celebrate our 100-year anniversary, kind of like Disneyland celebrates their
Yes,
anniversary.
of course. Why not?
Exactly. We don't want 1 year, we want 3. And so we launched the year we turned 100, our 3-year initiative to help 10,000 kids excel in school by raising $3 million. We went even further. We raised our $3 million, but we actually ended up helping over 15,000 kids over the past 3 years in regards to our educational programs. And so that's Dolly Parton Imagination Library, but that's also our Kinder Camp, in which we partner with the YMCA to help kiddos who have maybe not had access to high quality preschools get ready for kindergarten. That's our literacy tutoring. And that's also, we launched our guaranteed income program for former foster youth that are in college.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I think that's really a novel concept and so necessary, because we know such a small percentage of foster youth, they can get in, but they don't graduate.
Yeah, it's pretty significant. I think only 3% of former foster youth who actually make it to college and university actually graduate, which just seems mind-boggling to me.
Right.
But it's so many things that I think many of us take for granted that you have former foster youth that are facing, whether it be, the life things that happen, right? Meeting your basic needs.
Right.
I have a 24-year-old, right? So I know very, very acutely all the things that just come up when you're
Yeah.
when you're young and you just need a little bit of help from mom and dad. And so our Women United, our philanthropic group, said, once again, how can we help? And we saw that there was a gap in our programming. We would go up through high school, but then that transitional age youth, we saw that we wanted to be able to do more. And the first year that Dr. Luke Wood came to Sac State, we know that he is a former foster youth, and one of his initiatives was, I want Sac State to be the place for former foster youth to graduate and come. And we said, hey, we love that mission. We believe in that too. And so we ended up actually partnering with the Guardian Scholars Program at Sac State that first year and providing $500 a month, no strings attached, to youth in their program. And we actually surprised them at our gala.
Oh, wow. They had no idea that
They
was
had
coming.
no idea.
How cool.
These youth, these college students who were former foster youth from our 5-county region, they thought they were participating in a research study on guaranteed income.
Oh, what a great way to
And
do
so
that.
we took them shopping, right? We were like, okay, yeah, you got to dress to all the nines. And then Dr. Luke Wood's foster mom actually came out with us and surprised them and presented a check for $60,000 for these youth. And so
That's amazing.
it was pretty remarkable. And then last year, because this is a 12-month program, and so then last year, these youth thought, oh, okay, I'm coming to the gala. We are now sunsetting the program, right? Ending the program and then going to the new cohort. And we said, well, we can't end yet. You guys haven't graduated yet. All of our students were still in college, but they hadn't quite graduated, so they're graduating this year. And so we're gonna roll it back and give you another year. And so we wanted to
my
make
goodness.
sure that we walked that graduation stage with them. And again, that they knew once you are a part of United Way family, you're a part of the family and we take care of our own.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And if there's ever been a perfect example of the use of guaranteed income, because not only do you see it in its orientation and the initial impact it has, but you see it in its fruition.
Absolutely.
They graduate.
Absolutely. They not only they graduate, but again, you are changing lives through this $500 a month. It seems small, but we know for our students, it's been able to help them get through rental struggles, right? We've had a lot of housing insecurity, and because they had these dollars, they were able to secure a place. Car troubles, right? It's like, how do you get to school?
Well, if a battery goes out and you can't afford to get the battery, you're out.
Exactly. And several of our students have told us if it wasn't for these $500, they wouldn't have been able to finish school.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't have happened because they would have needed to get a second or a third job, right? All of our students work. All of them work. But these dollars help them to be able to do that much more so that they can take care of themselves and participate fully in the college experience. It's a beautiful thing that we are able to do, and we're doing it in partnership with our donors. This is made possible because of everyday people like you and me.
People who contribute.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the story, too, because people don't necessarily see everything all the time, but you do. That's a tangible result.
Yeah.
And everybody wants impact.
Yes.
Okay, well, where did my money go?
Yep.
Well, here, it's name the student.
Yes.
Right there, that student started, would not have made it, and has now graduated.
Yeah, if it wasn't for you.
That's
Absolutely. It's part of what we love doing. And so for our 3-year initiative that we talked about, that was one of the things every single year when you come back to our gala, we tell you what we accomplished with your dollars, right?
Yes.
These donor dollars were able to do this, 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 and this. And that was really, really important to us, as a data scientist, for us to be able to report back to you, here's where your dollars have gone, and here's the data that supports the impact that you are having.
And that's everybody's question today.
Yeah.
We know there's a lot of organizations that have that story, and the impact is what's most important. How did you help your mission fulfilled?
Absolutely.
Especially from a donor perspective. As things change and funding is going to become so much more important,
Yep.
the result of that mission or purpose or cause is what's everything at this point.
Yeah. You want to see, I think generationally in the area of philanthropy and giving that the culture has shifted. And we've certainly
Yes.
seen it with United Ways across the country. And I will say I'm a millennial. As a millennial, I think generationally, I want to be a part of my giving. I not only give and trust that you're going to give to the right place, but I give and I want to also participate in that giving. And I think that is very common common with our generation. And so that is one of the things that we try to do through our mission moments, right? And through our volunteerism. There are lots of opportunities for you to give not only of your time, but your treasure, and to be a part of the giving.
To your point, we just had an interview with a gentleman who's an author of a book called Neurogiving,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the science of donor decision making. And the biggest thing you can do as an organization is engage.
Mm-hmm.
Engage the donor. You don't want somebody who just supports you. That means they're just giving you the money.
Yeah,
But
transactional.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
If they participate in your mission and they actually are doing something with the organization, it becomes a part of them.
Yes.
And then you have a legacy giver.
Right.
That's a
And you have a
sustainable.
partner united in this work,
Correct.
right? And that's really, really important to us. We don't want our giving to just be simply transactional.
Right.
We want you to be a part of it with us. And it feels, I often say we just had our toy distribution in December, and it's just this wonderful experience. And I often say, I feel like I'm getting more out of giving than probably the folks that we're giving to. It just feels wonderful to be able to help someone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, and that's kind of the premise of his book too, is
Mhm.
what happens in the brain, the neuroscience of it all,
Yeah.
the neural pathways, how they change, and
How they activate.
oxytocin is produced, right?
Mhm.
And dobutamine, all these wonderful things that come from participating and giving.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was really surprising to me is one of the things that they realized is the person that you're giving with,
Mhm.
people in the room with you, experience the same thing, even if they're not doing the giving.
I love that.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Somehow the brains sync.
Yeah.
There's a biochemistry that actually engages everybody, and it lasts for hours after you've separated.
Oh, that's why our mission moments feel so good.
Isn't that true?
Yes.
Isn't that true?
Yes, absolutely. You leave, you're like energized. You've been working all day, right? But you're just like, I feel good.
Yes, yes. Let's talk a little bit about the collaboration part.
Yeah.
Because it's so big and it's such an important part today, especially as funding changes and people are looking at ways to do things together.
Yeah.
Who are some of the collaborative partners that you work with?
Yeah. So one of the first folks that we often call, in fact, we're doing a project right now, is the Sierra Health Foundation.
Yes.
I mean, this amazing, between the center and the Health Foundation, just amazing organization that really has, I think, been a beacon and an example of what it means to like bring organizations together and to provide support and help in the mission. Right now, we launched an initiative called Match for Meals, in which we saw with the SNAP benefits ending that we needed to do more. And so dollar for dollar match is happening right now to be able to support your local food bank. Up to $300,000, which we're really, really
Wow.
excited about. Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
And we're doing that in partnership with the Sierra Health Foundation. But we also have local organizations, as I named, like the YMCA, that we work closely with, and other school districts that we work very, very closely with. And so we have the Roberts Development Center that we work very closely with. We had we raised over $70,000 and brought in nearly 4,000 toys for our toy distribution, which was pretty amazing, right?
That is amazing, yes.
But here's the thing. We made sure that we were also giving to other local nonprofits. And so we gave to families and kiddos in our community, and then we called up nonprofits and said, hey, would you like to get some of these toys as well? And so I think we supported an additional 5 nonprofits and then being able to give to their clients too. And so that's
amazing.
the kind of collaboration, in addition to our free tax prep work that we do.
Yeah,
So-
tell me just a little bit about that so people understand who it's for, how it works, and how do you get to everybody?
Yeah, free tax prep.
Yes,
So this is a pretty cool program.
I think so too.
In the past 5 years, we've brought in over $43 million in tax refunds to our region. Over $43 million, which is pretty amazing. I'm in particularly in love with this program because it's actually the first program that I participated in with United Way over 20 years ago. And so as a graduate student who had a young child, I had gone somewhere and paid for my taxes to get done. And I remember being so proud of myself because it was the first year I'd filed taxes. I called up my mom and said, I filed taxes. It only costs this much money. And my mom was like, you don't make any money. How could you possibly have paid someone to do your taxes? And I was like, well, isn't that what we're supposed to do? And she said, no, there's this program called, at that time it was VITA, but it's free tax prep that United Way was running. And she said, next year, let's make sure you get in this program. And so the following year I did. I remember going to, as a volunteer,
Yes.
going to the senior center, bringing all my paperwork. I have trust issues. I was like, really? I'm going to give you this and you're just going to do them? They did the taxes. I got this huge refund back and it all came to me. There was no costs, right? That is the free tax prep program. If you make under $67,000, whether you're a family of 1 or a family of 10, you qualify. And these are IRS certified volunteers who do your taxes and make sure every dollar that you're supposed to get, that you're entitled to, your refund, comes back to your pocket. And that is really, really important, particularly for folks who are living in poverty like I was, where those dollars are needed in order to help you make your rent. It was in order for me to be able to help support my son and to pay for childcare and all these other things that we need to meet our basic needs so that we can not, again, have a handout where we're, asking to be pulled out of poverty, but a hand up so that
right.
we can pull ourselves out of poverty.
Well, and for our foster youth as well, who are all working.
Absolutely.
They can get their taxes taken care of. They don't have to worry about it.
And these are folks you can trust. These are, again, IRS certified volunteers. And so my mom actually is one of the volunteers. She is retired. And a few years ago, she said, hey, I would like to volunteer for something. She likes numbers. And I was just like, well, what about this? And she really likes being able to help people and find ways to make sure they get money back in their pocket.
Boy, the apple didn't fall far from the tree, did it?
I know.
A data research analyst. I mean,
Yes.
How neat.
Yeah.
We'll continue our conversation with Dr. Dawnté Early from United Way right after we hear from the local businesses making this program possible.
I'm James Beckwith, President and CEO of Five Star Bank. We're dedicated to supporting nonprofit organizations who advocate for the strength, resilience, and vitality of those they serve. When nonprofit organizations thrive, our community does too. By supporting the Nonprofit Podcast Network, Five Star Bank is amplifying the voices and meaningful impact of our nonprofit community. We're Five Star Bank, a trusted nonprofit partner. How can we help you?
We are really excited to be part of the family and contribute to the work that you all are doing. CORE provides fractional and interim executive services, along with comprehensive back-office solutions that go into our client sites and do the work to give them the capacity they need in order to move through transitions, whether that's planned or unplanned. Or companies also work with our accounting and finance, back-office solutions, human resources, technology, and administration. The reason why our back office solutions add value is because we save them time and money, anywhere from 20 to 30% of what they would spend on that back office solution. We work in it so they can actually work on it. CXORE.com and contact me directly at DTEAT@CXORE.com.
If you're interested in learning more about how CORE may help your organization, visit CXORE.com.
Hello, this is Scott Thomas with Cap Trust in our Sacramento office. I specialize in working with local nonprofits and associations. Annually, we survey private and public nonprofit organizations across the country to better understand challenges they see in today's environment. In our more recent survey, we heard concerns about proper board governance, mission-aligned investment, and how to implement alternative investments. If you would like a copy of the survey or to discuss your organization, look me up, Scott Thomas at captrust.com.
I'm thrilled to have Western Health Advantage partnering with us as they do so much to support so many nonprofit agencies in our community. As a truly local health plan, you'll find individual and family options, employer options, plans for CalPERS and Medicare Advantage. From medical services to pharmacy, health and wellness support, as well as behavioral health care, Western Health Advantage has a plan that fits what you need. As an employer, for profit or nonprofit business, individual or family, you can find more at westernhealth.com. Let's talk a little bit about funding for the organization, because it's changed since Dr. Dawnté Early has been there.
It has.
Tell
It
us a little bit
has.
from what it was when you got there to where we are today.
Yeah. So in the past, I can't even believe I've been here this long. It's been 4 years. So
Which is not that long, Dawnté.
remember, I'm a millennial.
That-
4 years is a long time for us. But in the past 4 years, our revenue has grown by 100 and I think something like 14%.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Last year, we were part of the SAC Business Journal's fastest growing company.
Yes.
I think we were number 18 out of 50 and the only nonprofit
Yes.
on that list. Our revenue has grown because our model, how we approach our community impact work, has also changed. Much of the work we now do is direct services, and so a lot of those dollars have grown through grant dollars, but also through donor dollars as well. And this is something that we talked about, right? Which is you want to see the impact, you want to know where it's going. When I first started, we participated in a survey across our region that Sac State puts on to ask, and we ask the question, what are the services that you feel are needed in your county? And we heard from folks, especially coming out of COVID. It was
I'm
education.
sure you did, yeah.
Absolutely. Especially coming out of COVID, and you had 2 years in which kiddos didn't have the opportunity to physically go to school. And we saw, particularly for communities of color and communities that were living in poverty, that gap in time affected our kids more significantly. And so we leaned into that. We leaned into saying, okay, so this seems to be the area of impact that needs us the most right now. And so we stepped into that. But then what we also did was we stepped into housing. Again, coming out of COVID, we saw the highest rates of kids actually ever being homeless and women being homeless as well. And so we knew that kids can't focus on school and education if they are worrying about where their next meal is going to be, if they're worrying about where they're
Roof
going
over
to
their head.
exactly where they're going to sleep that night. Are you going to be on a couch? Are you going to be in someone's garage? Are you going to be in your parents' car? And so we did all. And our approach to the work that we do now is the kids are the center of our work. And so education's ladder out of poverty, but we go out from that. Right? And so we support the kid in guaranteed income and their family. We support children in making sure that they have housing. So we do housing work now. We support families and children in free tax prep, making sure that your family is getting that influx of cash that you're entitled to. And then we also provide community schools. And so what I often say is the schools have to be just as strong as the households that the kids are coming from. And so we are in partnership with school districts providing those supports too. And so our revenue has changed because our work and impact have changed as well. And I think organizations and companies have seen that and have stepped up right along with us, and that our donors have seen that as well, hence our 3-year initiative and how we were able to raise over $3 million and help over 15,000 kids. And that was just in our educational programs alone. That we've helped
that's not your full.
Yes, that's not the full number actually of kids we've served in those 3 years.
What is the budget currently, roughly?
Our revenue, I think this year is something like $16 million dollars this year, and
Which is
climbing.
incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And so you see it in terms of growth from not only the corporate side, the individual donor side, but also now you have a fee-for-service model too.
Absolutely.
Which is sustainable.
Yep.
And so important for so many organizations to start looking at ways to do things differently, because you're not going to be able to rely on those federal grants that are going to trickle down to state, trickle down to county, and it's going to be a challenging time for most people.
It is. One of the first things I did in my first year was I went on a learning tour. United Way is a wonderful network in which we have very committed, passionate, very experienced leaders. And so I started calling up. I'd never led a nonprofit before, and definitely not had partnerships with United Way previous. I was a state employee.
Yes.
And so the first thing I did my first year was started calling United Ways, calling CEOs, and saying like, "Well, what are you doing?
Good for you.
What are you doing? What are you doing?" And then I'm very, very fortunate. I'm from the Sacramento region to have a network of leaders here that I was also able to call. But in that first year, year I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And based on what I saw and what I learned, we then began to diversify our revenue and again, respond to community need. It wasn't diversifying just to diversify, right? It was what does the community need? And that being our compass and then working backwards from there, that North Star.
Which is the applicable way to do it.
Absolutely.
Understanding the need first to know what you're
That's why we
servicing.
exist.
Right?
Yeah.
If you don't, what are you doing?
Yes. Exactly.
I'm sure having somebody like a Chet who at Sierra
Yes.
Health to
Who's
talk
a
to.
mentor. Absolutely. Yes.
He did a wonderful episode in here when we had him in. And another one of the people I
He's
was so
brilliant.
so pleased to get in. He absolutely is.
Yeah.
So you've got your budget. If you look out into, let's say it's a crystal ball, somebody says, Dawnté, I've got this blank check.
Mm-hmm.
We like the work that you're doing. If you give me a good enough reason, I'll give it to you. What would it be? What would you say? Here's what we really need to do.
So there's a couple things. So this is oh man, a good question, but also challenging.
Yes.
So I'm going to answer it a couple of ways. One of the things that we started when I first got to United Way was also doing policy work.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't touched on that, but I want to make sure I share that because
I'm glad you do.
Yeah, because here's the thing: if our goal, if our mission is to end poverty, right, which is a very audacious goal.
Yes.
We can do that, and we can support at the ground level where we're at in helping folks and meeting their basic needs and providing those programs. But similar to the public health model, right, in which you see babies coming down the river, and you're pulling them out, and you're saving right down at the end of the river. But eventually you ask the question, where are they coming from?
When does this stop?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
It's like Lucille Ball picking those candies off the
Exactly.
conveyor belt at some
Yeah.
point. For those of you who are old enough to who know who I'm talking about.
I am. And so here we are, right at the end of this river, and we are providing the services, and we're helping now, and that's needed. But what we also say at United Way is that poverty is a policy choice. We did not get here accidentally.
Mm-hmm.
We have institutions that are making decisions that are impacting us downstream. And so we also need to go upstream to address that too. And so for the very first time, we authored legislation, right, in partnership with legislators. We advocate at our Capitol and at the federal level as well. And so I want to make sure I address that because if I had a crystal ball of what would be the things that you would change, one, I think policy takes a very long time to change. And so that can be, when you talk about from a donor perspective, from a grant perspective, that can be difficult to get behind because you don't see results immediately, right? You don't see the babies coming out of the water immediately, right?
Yeah, you don't see that flow slow.
Exactly.
What it needs to do, because today we know the flow is actually increasing.
Yes, exactly. And so if I had sort of a blank check, it would be ultimately to go upstream and to do the advocacy work that we need to do in order to slow that flow and stop that flow and make permanent changes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I would advocate for that. Outside of that,
No, keep going, please.
right? Outside of that, again, downstream, I think what would be amazing, United Way has this program called Spark Points. And it was started in United Way Bay Area. It was started in the Bay, in which it provides incentives and a year-long financial coaching for individuals and families. And it starts with, what's your goal financially? Is it to save for an apartment or a house?
Mm-hmm.
Is it to save to improve your credit, right? Whatever that goal may be, you work with your financial coach. And every month and every time you're going, we're putting a little bit of dollars aside as you're coaching. And then you get to the end of that program, usually about 12 months, and you graduate and you have enough dollars to be able to meet that goal that you started with, and you have the financial coaching and backing that you've participated in over that year to be able to help you get there.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have a Spark Point Center in every one of the counties that we serve. Particularly, I honestly think it would be really cool to have them at schools in which you're able to work with families. And so they're coming, right, working with their kiddos. They're
Financial
both
education,
exactly.
financial literacy at such an early age.
Yes, exactly. And so you're able to almost have a twofer, right? Where you're working with parents, working with kids, they're working together, right, on their financial literacy, and they're working towards a goal together. And I think that would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, back to reality. What is the biggest need that you see today?
Yeah. I've been saying this for probably the past couple of months. I have for nonprofits, I think I have some real concerns about the safety net programs and organizations that provide those safety net services and social services, what that's going to look like over the next 3 years in our region. I have some real concerns that nonprofits are not going to be able to weather the storm that we already saw last year, just the beginning, and that is going to continue to get worse. You talked about funding drying up. I think that nonprofits already operate on a razor-thin margin as far as being able to meet the bottom line that enables them, right, revenue-wise, to be able to serve the community. And these are vulnerable community members, neighbors, friends that need these services.
Yes.
We see that government is stepping back in regards to some of those services that they will be providing for folks in need the most, while they're also stepping back from the nonprofits that provide also some of those services. And so you have two things happening at once. And I think a major need is going to be funding. I think a major challenge is going to be continuing to support and stand up and prop up these organizations that need to be there for the community, that also, again, need those services. And so I imagine over the next few years, it's going to be incumbent that larger nonprofits like a United Way, like a Sierra Health, are able
Salvation
to
Armies.
Salvation Army, absolutely, are able to step into that gap even more than potentially we have in the past, in order to be there for these other nonprofits so that they can do the work that needs to happen in face of all of these challenges and deficits that are going to be hitting our community.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I do think we're going to see some of that. Obviously, philanthropy cannot make up the gap.
It's just not possible.
It's impossible. It's too much money.
Yeah.
But I think we're starting to see today, and certainly 3 years down the line, it's going to look very, very different in the collaborative nature of how people are working together and consolidating services and back ends and just things that make sense because they're forced to.
Out of challenge comes innovation.
Absolutely.
And if I could imagine any silver lining and opportunity.
Yes.
And if I could imagine any silver lining, it will be the opportunity to be able to figure out how do we come together? How do we collaborate more? How do we consolidate and use our resources even more efficiently? Sometimes the answer isn't that you do more with less, though, right?
Right.
Sometimes you can only do less with less.
Correct.
And so how do we try as much as possible to stitch together?
Great conversation, which obviously could be a whole topic for hours with a panel and
I tried to stay on topic.
Yes.
I know I jumped, but
no, absolutely fine. So you are extremely involved in very many things.
I am.
So pro tem mayor of West Sacramento, and
as of last year, but now
that's now in
yes,
it. But
now, yes,
this is January of 2026 that we're recording this.
Yeah.
That will keep you busy. You've got an organization that's a multi-million-dollar organization. You have been recognized by the Sacramento Observer as one of the persons of the year. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you.
And then one of the fastest growing businesses from Sacramento Business Journal. How do you chill? Where's relax? What does it look like for Dr. Dawnté Early?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I genuinely enjoy what I do. Genuinely, right? I wake up every morning excited to be able to help someone, which is why I'm able to be a city council member as well as a CEO of a nonprofit, because what they both have in common is being able to support my community, right, and how they need. This past year in 2025, I did have some health issues, and so really it forced me to pause as much as I love, right, doing what I do.
And I appreciate you sharing that,
Yeah.
because so many people who are in positions like yours, you carry a lot of weight.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. You can't get away from it. You see it
Right.
every day on the street. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. And I also feel that not only as someone in my position, but I also feel like women, right, will oftentimes do this. We are givers. We, take care of the family. We take care of our kids. We take care of our community. And oftentimes we will take care of others at the expense of ourselves. And I see this with my colleagues all the time and other women leaders. And as much as I see it, I was doing it to myself.
Yes.
And so this past year in 2025, I had to pause and had to get back to, the things that also keep me healthy. And so every single day, 5 to 6 days a week, I work out, I lift weights.
Good for you.
Which is really, really important. No matter what my schedule looks like, it is I calendar it so that everyone knows this is my time, whether it's at lunch, whether it's at 5 a.m., or whether it's at 7 at night, right? I'm getting that in. And so today it was 5 a.m. because my daughter has track practice later on today, right? But it got in. And then I've also started to just actually pay attention to, we talked about it, my water intake, what foods I'm eating, all of the things. And as of this recording, I'm 36 pounds down. And so
Congratulations.
But that is because I actually started to prioritize my health in ways I haven't done in a few years.
And that's important for everybody to understand. It's the oxygen mask in the airplane. If you aren't there, you can't help your child.
Absolutely.
You have to start with yourself, and it's so important.
Yeah, I will often tell my staff, because we do like holiday rest days and things like that, that you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yes.
And so if you are not figuring out how to replenish your energy and just the things that fulfill you outside of work, right? Because work does fulfill me, then that'll be challenging for you to help someone else.
Yep. Good for you.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to talk to you a year from now to see what that's all going to look like.
I'm so excited.
Yes. Any last words for the audience?
Yeah. So if you make $67,000 or less, you can go to yourlocalunitedway.org and find a location. We are, I think, taking signups right now. It's tax season. If you would like to give or volunteer, you can also go to yourlocalunitedway.org as well. And then
And is that the best place to go?
Absolutely.
Unitedway.org?
Okay. Your local United Way. Your local United Way.
I'll put that in the show notes.
Yes, absolutely. And then our gala is coming up at the end of March. And so if you want to see what we've been up to and what our next 3-year initiative will be and participate in that, we would love to have you there too.
And is that gala every March? Is that typically when it happens?
It typically happens either March or April.
Okay.
Our actual birthday is at the end of April. And so I want to say it's like April 30th.
Okay.
But this year it'll be March 28th.
Okay, so this year is 2026 as we're recording it, so
Yes.
you can make a note on your calendars.
Absolutely.
Get that taken care of. And we can actually put a link in the show notes for that as well.
That would be great. Yes, and hopefully you'll join us too.
I
It's
would
a
look forward
fun
to it.
event. You leave very, very, like I said, your cup will be filled.
Good. I don't know that I've been to any of the United Way events over the course of the 40-plus years I've been in Sacramento.
Okay, so then you have to come.
So, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Dawnté, serving our community's future leaders through education and working to alleviate poverty is really a long-term goal that United Way has been focused on for a while.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned and talked about, we have to slow the flow.
Yeah.
We have to get better at what's coming into the system so that we can help those coming out of the system.
Exactly.
What you do with United Way, how you collaborate, how you integrate into the community, including the schools. I mean, that's walking the walk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're talking about education, you have to be in the school system.
Yeah.
and supporting those foster youth through college and supporting those who are doing tax returns who don't have the ability to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Just amazing work. So what you do for us in the community and what your team accomplishes, how many are there, by the way?
Oh, that's a good question because the organization has grown, right?
Yes, I forgot to ask that.
So we have almost 60 staff members, team members right now. I think we're probably about to hit a little over 60 soon. And when I started at the organization, I want to say we had roughly 30.
Love that.
Yeah, so we've doubled, but all our team that has grown has been our program team, right? It's all about impact.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So for that 60 plus yourself, thank you for what you do, for what United Way does for the community.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. We hope today's episode inspired you and gave you a deeper look into the work of our local nonprofits. If you believe in our mission to amplify their voices, please take a moment to leave us a positive review and share this episode with a friend. It helps more people discover the incredible work happening in our community. And don't miss future episodes. Subscribe to our weekly updates and monthly newsletter at nonprofpod.com. And if you're part of a nonprofit that would like to be featured, we'd love to hear from you. Just visit the Guests tab on our website. The Nonprofit Podcast Network is recorded and produced at Hear Me Now Studio with generous support from our outstanding partners. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations. Online at captrust.com. Western Health Advantage, local care with community impact. Find the plan that fits at westernhealth.com. CORE, executive leadership and comprehensive support services. Visit cxore.com. And 5 Star Bank, a local trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. 5starbank.com.